In a city middle school cafeteria, an assistant principal dumps a boy's hot lunch into the trash and stamps his wrist with DBT, humiliating him in front of peers. A first-year art teacher intervenes by buying him a meal and refusing to back down, resulting in immediate suspension and public friction with her boss. She quietly helps the family navigate benefits, and small changes ripple through the school lunch line, while a simple Apple ticket becomes a hopeful sign. Just a quick note before we begin: hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more. Also, let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. It always amazes me how far these stories travel. The assistant principal pinched the tray from the boy's hands and tilted it over the trash. Macaroni slid off in a pale lump, steam rose, and tomato sauce streaked the black bag. He pressed a red stamp into an ink pad and onto the boy's wrist. DBT. The kids behind him went quiet, except for the tiny camera chime of a phone. The scanner kept beeping, and the fluorescent lights hummed like a duct about to rattle loose. The art teacher saw it from the far table where she was watching sixth graders pretend not to throw grapes. She had paint under one nail and a thrift store blazer on, the one with a loose thread at the cuff. Her rent was due next week. She was in her first year and still on probation. Last Friday, he'd written her up for unstructured discussion after a sketching exercise went late. The boy in the blue hoodie stared at his empty tray. His ears were red. A plastic fork clattered to the floor, and nobody bent to pick it up. She felt the room tilt like she was on a boat. Policy. She knew the word. Emails about federal reimbursements, a slideshow on lunch debt protocol. She also knew the boy. He drew tiny robots on the corners of his math worksheets and pretended the eraser was a car. He had not eaten breakfast. She had seen the way he blinked hard at 10 a.m. She walked to the line. Kids parted, eyes down. The assistant principal looked up, already frowning like he expected trouble, his whistle cord glinting against his tie. "I've got him," she said, reaching for a fresh tray. "Put it on my account." The cashier in the hairnet shook her head and kept her eyes on the register. "I can't, miss. The system doesn't let me. Staff meals are separate." "Then ring 2 staff meals," the art teacher said. She held her badge out. "He's eating with me." "Ms. Park," the assistant principal said, lowering his voice so it wouldn't carry. "Please don't do this. It's audit month. We got flagged last year. I can't have you undermining policy in front of the kids." He didn't look like a villain. He looked tired, like a man who slept with a laptop open on his chest. She shook her head. "I'm not undermining anything. We're eating." She slid the tray forward, spooned a scoop of macaroni, swapped it for a slice of pizza that looked less like paste. She grabbed a carton of milk and a bruised apple. Her hands didn't shake, which surprised her. "You're making a scene," he said. He was careful with his tone. "We can sort his balance in the office later. He's hungry now." She stepped between him and the boy without touching either. Her throat felt hot. Somewhere, a kid whispered, "Dang." And somewhere else, someone snorted. The lunch manager muttered, "Don't get me in trouble, miss," without looking up. She had a stack of bread to slice and an injury claim from 2 months ago that still hadn't paid out. People had their own storms. "Badge," the cashier said. The art teacher held it over the little black pad. The reader beeped, then beeped again. 2 staff meals, the cashier said softly. The assistant principal stood there with the red stamp in his hand, a little line of ink across his palm. He watched as the art teacher put the tray in front of the boy in the blue hoodie and nodded at him like this was a Tuesday, which it was. "Sit with me," she said to the boy. He glanced up, eyes wet but not crying. He moved like he expected someone to pull him back. Nobody did. They took a table near the back where the light made the tile look even cheaper. She sat so her body blocked the view of the kids with the phones. He took a bite fast, then slower. She opened her own milk and didn't drink it. The assistant principal came over and put his hand on the table, not hard but firm, and leaned down. "You're on lunch duty," he said. "Right now, you're not. We'll talk in the office." "Bring your lanyard," she nodded, not looking at him. "I will." They ate standing consequences. When the boy was done, he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, careful not to smear the red stamp. He made his apple disappear into his hoodie pocket. He looked a little less hollow. In the office, the assistant principal closed the door and took a breath. "You can't do that here," he said. He didn't sit down. "You know that. I don't write the rules. If the state sees a pattern, we lose reimbursement, and then it's no hot meals for a week. I'll get fired. The cafeteria staff will get cut. I don't want that." She stood with her tote still on her shoulder. "Okay," she said, "then do what you need to do." He looked at her for a count of 3, then picked up the phone. HR, he said into the receiver, I need a form. Security walked her to her room. It wasn't dramatic. She put a dead plant into her tote and the little play bird a kid had made for her that looked more like a potato. The hallway was a river of kids not looking at her. Someone hissed, "Yo," and then pretended they hadn't. At the front desk, the secretary slid a paper across the surface. Administrative leave pending investigation, it said at the top. Unpaid. She printed her name in the right box. The pen scratched. The assistant principal was in the doorway, arms crossed, not triumphant. He had the look of a man in shoes that didn't fit. She stepped into the afternoon. The sky was the dull white of a sheet. The buses burped diesel. On the curb, the boy in the blue hoodie was waiting, backpack straps crossed on his chest like a seatbelt. He saw her and stiffened, then didn't run. She sat on the low wall by the bike rack and waved him over. You good? She asked. He nodded, then shook his head. She took a 10 from her wallet and the spare 5 behind her bus pass. You want soup? She said. They've got the good kind at the corner place. He looked at the school entrance like it was watching. Then he followed her to the bodega with the green awning and the dusty Boston ferns in the window. The bell over the door made a bright sound. They sat on milk crates by the window with 2 styrofoam bowls of chicken noodle and foil-wrapped empanadas. A radio by the lottery machine crackled through a commercial for used tires. He blew on a spoonful until the steam thinned and slurped. Thanks, he said finally. She pointed at his stamped wrist. That will wash off, she said. Don't rub too hard, he shrugged. It doesn't matter, he said. Everybody saw. His voice was small but not broken. He took another careful bite. He pulled a folded paper from his hoodie pocket, the apple thunking onto the crate. My mom told me to give this to the office, he said. They keep saying she has to come in, but she works nights, so she's asleep. And then they say she missed it. She held out a hand, then waited until he nodded. The paper was soft with handling and had a coffee ring. It said, Notice of termination of benefits. Recertification appointment missed, with a date from last week. There was a phone number with a hold music promise underlined twice in pink highlighter. He pointed at the bottom where someone had written a second date in pen. They moved it, he said. Mom said she called, but the lady put her on hold, and then her break was over. He wasn't complaining. He was reporting. She folded it back along the old creases and slid it to him like it was still his, which it was. Do you have a way to get there? She asked. He shrugged again. She said the bus. But last time she went the printer was broken. Okay, she said. She opened her phone and took a picture of the letter, cropping out the name by accident and then on purpose. Can I call her? He dug in his pocket and pulled out a cheap phone with a smiley face sticker on the back, cracked at the mouth. She's at work, he said. She cleans offices. After midnight you can call. Got it. She tore a napkin in half and wrote her number in block letters. Tell her I can drive you, or we can sit on hold together. I've got time. The words came out before she did the math. She looked at the leave form folded in her tote. Time wasn't what she had, it was what she had anyway. They finished the soup. He packed the apple away again. When he stood, he lifted his wrist and scrubbed the stamp with the damp napkin until it blurred, and for a second it looked like it'd never been there. That night, when the apartment upstairs thumped and the radiator hissed, her phone buzzed. A woman's voice, soft and careful, introduced herself. They spoke in short sentences. The woman worked from 7 to 5, and then again from 8 to midnight. She could meet at 9 in the morning after a nap. She had the papers in a folder but kept losing the right page in line. Tomorrow, the art teacher said, I'll drive. Bring everything. They went. The county office was a room of chairs that made people sit shoulder to shoulder when everyone wanted space. The number screen flickered. A toddler played with a plastic spoon on the floor and sang to himself. The fluorescent lights hummed there too. They waited. She handed over her pen when the mothers ran out and pushed the stack of photocopies back into order when the wind from the door flipped them. The mother had a cleaning rag in her coat pocket like a habit she had carried out of the job. The boy fell asleep against her shoulder, mouth open, the apple peeking from his hoodie. At window 6, the worker didn't look up. You missed the last appointment, she said, in a voice that must have been tired by noon every day. They moved it, the mother said. She didn't raise her voice. She slid the letter under the glass with both hands. The worker skimmed it, typed, sighed. We can reinstate for now, she said. Make sure to answer the phone when they call. It'll be a blocked number. Could be today, could be never. You know how it goes. Then, softer. I'll put in a note. The art teacher saw the mother's shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. It felt like a whole thing. After, they went to a discount market and bought rice, eggs, oranges, and the bright pink detergent that was $2 cheaper. The art teacher tried to carry the heavier bag and didn't argue when the mother pulled it back. She got an email from HR that afternoon. Investigation ongoing. Further updates to follow. Please refrain from discussing on social media. She looked at her cracked screen and the soup-stained napkin with her number on it and put her phone down. On Monday, outside the school she was not allowed to enter, she sat on the low wall again and watched the line snake into the cafeteria through the glass. Nobody was stamping hands. On the counter by the register, a basket of bananas had appeared with a paper sign taped to it, "Take one." The letters were lopsided, like someone's kid had helped. The assistant principal stood at the far end of the line, not touching trays. His tie was straight. He was talking to the lunch manager with his palms open, like he was offering instead of ordering. A stack of small, pale green tickets sat by the register, each stamped with a tiny apple. One by one, the cashier slid them to kids who hesitated. The kids tucked them into pockets without anyone looking. No phones were out. Someone had taped an index card to the wall by the scanner. Questions? Ask me away from the line. In the office window, the secretary had set a clear tub labeled snack bar with granola bars inside. A kid walked in, hesitated, and took one like he was stealing, even though he wasn't. A teacher she knew from down the hall paused by the door and spotted her outside. He lifted a hand, then put it down and pretended to adjust his backpack strap. Later, a text buzzed. They're changing the lunch script. Also, the union is filing a thing. You okay? She typed, fine. Then, he okay? Better. Came back. That afternoon, she sat on her stoop with the clay bird and her leave form. She imagined the cafeteria without the stamp and the boy's bowl of soup, steam curling like a quiet ribbon. She had not fixed anything big. She had paid for 2 lunches and lost pay for days and maybe for longer. She had made space for one kid to eat without shame and for a tired man to put his stamp away without losing face. That would have to be enough for now. She pressed the Apple ticket someone had slipped under her door flat against her tote with a strip of clear tape. When the sun dropped, it caught the pale green paper and turned it warm as a little lamp.